Emily and Ryan had been together for 3 years, and they had always been adventurous. They loved exploring new places, trying new things, and living life to the fullest. One weekend, they decided to take a road trip to a remote cabin in the woods. They had rented the cabin online, and the pictures had looked beautiful. The cabin was surrounded by trees. As they drove to the cabin, they noticed that the GPS had taken them off the main road. The road was winding and narrow, and they had to drive slowly to avoid hitting any trees. After a few hours of driving, they finally arrived at the cabin. It was just as beautiful as the pictures had shown. They spent the day exploring the cabin and the surrounding woods. As night began to fall, they decided to build a fire and cook some dinner. As they were eating, they heard a strange noise in the woods. At first, they thought it was just an animal, but then they heard footsteps. The footsteps got closer and closer, and Emily and Ryan started to feel uneasy. They tried to shine their flashlights into the woods, but they couldn't see anything. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness. He was tall and gaunt, with sunken eyes and a menacing grin. Emily and Ryan were frozen in terror. "Welcome to my home," the stranger said, his voice dripping with malice. Emily and Ryan tried to run, but the stranger was too quick. He caught them and tied them up, taking them deeper into the woods. As they were dragged through the darkness, Emily and Ryan realized that they had stumbled into the path of a psychopath. They were at his mercy, and they didn't know if they would ever escape. The stranger took them to an old, abandoned mine. He tied them up and left them there, saying that he would be back soon. Emily and Ryan were left in the darkness, wondering if they would ever see the light of day again. They were trapped, and they didn't know how to escape. As they waited, they heard the sound of footsteps echoing through the mine. The stranger was coming back, and Emily and Ryan knew that they had to think fast if they wanted to survive. They tried to come up with a plan, but their minds were racing and they couldn't think clearly. They were trapped, and they didn't know how. Just as the stranger was about to reach them, Emily remembered a trick she had learned from a self-defense class. She used her feet to push against the ground, and she managed to loosen the ropes that bound her. With her newfound freedom, Emily quickly untied Ryan and they made a run for it. They sprinted through the mine, their hearts pounding in their chests. They could hear the stranger behind them, his footsteps getting closer and closer. But Emily and Ryan didn't look back. They kept running, their eyes fixed on the light at the end of the tunnel. Finally, they emerged from the mine, gasping for air. They looked around, trying to get their bearings. They were deep in the woods, but they could see. Without hesitation, they started running towards the road. They didn't stop until they reached their car, which was parked on the side of the road. Breathless and shaken, Emily and Ryan locked themselves in the car and drove away from the woods as fast as they could. They didn't stop until they reached the safety. It wasn't until they were safe and sound that Emily and Ryan realized the true extent of their ordeal. They had stumbled into the path of a psychopath, and they had narrowly escaped with their lives. The experience had left them shaken, but it had also brought them closer together. They realized that they had to cherish every moment they had together, because life was unpredictable and fragile. From that day on, Emily and Ryan made a promise to each other to always be aware of their surroundings, to trust their instincts, and to never take their love for granted.